one concept that I live by that first created my growth mindset towards my running quest and overall life and their importance is one that I would say was the real seed that started my whole journey towards my quest. And if you want to know exactly what I mean by my running quest, well, I encourage you to check out my origin story that I created previously on my channel, which you can find at this link right here. I think it's that one, but I don't really know. You just check that out and that'll give you context on what I mean by that. This concept that I'm about to teach you is one that I find it's critical for you to understand how you can achieve success in your life in various goals and various dreams that you have, and gives you a reality behind what it really takes to achieve success and what really goes on behind and what the main mechanism is behind those successful achievements that you see others people do, whether how nobody actors become famous, how amateur athletes turn to pros, to how a small YouTube channel with 100 subscribers, they all start at 0. You got to remember that when you first sign up to YouTube, how they get to 1 million or 100 million subscribers. Well, this concept that I'm about to teach you is one that I mainly use that's helped me get through hard times, periods of doubt in myself, and to stay focused on what truly was important in my running. So this concept that I'm talking about is the compound effect. So I first learned about this concept from the Compound Effect book by Darrell Hartley, which it opened up my mind to the possibility that those dreams and those aspirations and those goals and those quests that I wanted to embark on are actually possible and much more simpler than you think. So simple and so easy that it's completely overlooked by everyone because you don't see the immediate change and the immediate progress straight away because it's so tiny and so insignificant that it seems like it's meaningless. Like everyone thinks, well, if I want to run a fast 800 or if I want to get that 5K PB or whatever your running goal is, you've got to do some big fancy workout, something that's flashy. You just got to run your heart out. But in reality, it's not like that at all to achieve that success. It's actually those little things that you do in your day-to-day life, whether it's in training, whether it's improving your sleep, whether it's improving your nutrition, that actually have the biggest impact on your results. So what is the compound effect? It's a principle of reaping high rewards from a series of small, smart actions that are repeated over time. So another way that I like to explain it is it's not about the big actions that you do that lead and create that success. It's actually those small, smart actions that you do over time that compound to amount to this big, overarching success. So if you're having a little bit of trouble still getting the picture on how the compound effect actually works, well, in the book, Compound Effect book, Darrell Hartley presents a scenario where you get to choose from two options. So on one hand, you get to receive $3 million in cash immediately, whereas option 2, you get to receive one single penny that doubles in value up until 31 days. So at first glance, it looks like option 1 will give you the most money because, hey, $3 million, that's a lot of money, and I get it right now. Whereas you look at option 2 and you're like, a penny? Like, how can that amount to anything more over 31 days, which is a month? How can that amount to a higher value than $3 million? Well, if you chose option 2, you chose right, because if we did the calculations on how much it would double from 1 cent on day 1 to day 33, you would actually be surprised. So on day 1, the value is 1 cent. Day 2, it's 2 cents. Day 3, it's 4 cents. Day 8, it's 8 cents. Day 5, it's 16 cents. Day 10, it's $5.12. Day 20, it's $5,000, $242.88. Day 25, it's $167,772.16 thousand. Day 30, it's $5,368,000. And then finally, on day 31, you get $10,737,418.24. So yes, that is almost 3 times the amount as option 1 would have given you of $3 million. Now, of course, that is just a hypothetical scenario. Obviously, you don't, in the real world, unfortunately, we don't have pennies that double in value over time. Well, that's the thing. That's the truth behind the matter of success. The compound effect, that idea of that you doubling, so in that scenario, the single penny represents a habit or an action, a small action that you're doing every day, which is simply just doubling the value of your dollar, just whether that be savings or good consistent sleep over a long period of time. Is that you can kind of see as well how this misconception can form is at first glance, with all those habits, such as getting good sleep, you don't immediately see the results. I think the best example would be going to the gym. When you go to the gym for the first day, you do a couple of bicep curls, you're working the muscle, you're breaking it down, and you wake up the next day and now you're like, wow, okay, that it feels sore, but it looks the same. Well, that's the thing about the compound effect. Like, you don't go to the gym the first day and then you immediately get big biceps like Arnold Schwarzenegger. That takes time. That takes years to do. But you think to yourself, well, if this is the case, why doesn't everyone do it? Well, we live in a world today where everything is instant. We want that instant gratification, that short-term gratification now, because it's the easy route. It's hard to be consistent. It's hard to wait patiently and consistently show up to the gym 2 times a week over years, 2-3 years, and then eventually you might start to get some gains. That's the hard option. And then you may think to yourself, well, how in the first place do we get this misconception that success happens overnight? Well, think about it. If we take, for example, the Olympics and those Olympic runners who have worked hard for years to get there, we only hear about them and see them and watch them race when they're at the Olympics. We didn't see the 4 years, 8 years, or even 12 years prior of them when they first started running. And that didn't happen overnight. And that's the thing. With most people's success, we only get to see it when it happens. We don't get to see all the workouts and all the sacrifices that they had to make along the way to achieve that success. Because how? Well, the camera is only filming and recording when they're on the podium receiving their gold medal, or when they're actually made it to the Olympics and they have Australia across their singlet presenting our country. We only see them then. And think about the rest of the world as well. It's the same thing. Like, if you're not actually actively paying attention to the sport, then, a lot of their performances would seem not even human. But they are. It's just it takes a while to get it there. Let's take, for example, acting. I recently watched a documentary called Sly on Netflix, which I highly recommend you watching. It's a very interesting documentary about Sylvester Stallone and how he went from living on the streets in New York, sleeping in bus stops, train stations, libraries, you name it, and learning to fend off the streets, trying to make his way to his dream, to make it, to become a a famous actor. He spent 4 years in that scenario. And it took him 4 years to eventually land his first major casting in the film called The Lords of Flatbush in 1974. Which, that's the thing. Before I watched this documentary, I had no idea that he was homeless for 4 years. I had no idea that he came from an abusive household with his single dad raising him, who was always jealous of any success, little success that he would have in his life. I didn't know that he was even in a film called Lords of the Flatbush, because I think it's the same with you too. We all know him because of Rocky. Well, when did that get written? Well, did you know that he actually wrote that film as well? Amazing. Well, the reason why he had to do that, a little side story, was because one of the problems that he encountered when he was going for these castings and, gigs and everything was he was always casted as the side character or the villain or the thug or the no-hoper, because that's all the directors saw in him. So one day he decided, well, if I'm going to get that role that I think I deserve to get and I can play well, which he wanted to be the lead actor. He wanted to be the hero of the story, not the villain. Then he decided, well, he had to write the script himself. He had to write him into a play. And that's what he did with Rocky. 2 years later, after the Lords of Flatbush, in 1976, when it was first produced. And then the next day when it was a hit, the Rocky film, everyone knew his name, Sylvester Stallone. But the day before that, no one knew him. And that's the reality. That's the reality. He wasn't born out of the womb straight away and he wrote Rocky. That took an additional 2 years after the Lords of Flatbush for that to happen as well. So, a quote that I really like that comes from the book as well goes like this. It doesn't matter how smart you are or aren't. You need to make up for it in hard work, what you lack in experience, skill, intelligence, and innate ability. This gave me the insight that just because, well, for me, in relation to my origin story, is, my mom, she used to always make it to state and nationals at my age, but I never applied myself. And I only started doing that in the last year of year 12. And that quote gave me the confidence where, in my story, well, hey, it ain't too late for me. I may be running against people who have been training much longer than me, have a higher training age, may have started when they're at ridiculous ages such as 5, 6, or 7 or whatever. Like, who knows, they want to be like an Olympic runner at that age. Some people do, more power to them, but fortunately I didn't until now. So this quote made me understand and empowered me that, hey, it ain't too late. All I have to do to close the gap with them is I have to work harder and I have to work smarter than my competitors who started earlier than me. Now you may be thinking to yourself, well, how can I make this compound effect work in my life? Well, this is how it works. And this is how you can build, which in the book they call it big mo, which is big momentum, because that's the other aspect about when we start new things is, as you know, Newton's law of inertia, things that stay at rest will remain at rest unless a force acts upon it. Well, it's the same with kickstarting new habits and getting this compound effect to start working in your favor. Well, they outline a couple of steps on how you can achieve that. So, step 1, start making new habits based on your goals and core values. So, let's give an example. E.g., for me, to achieve my quest, we'll have to be getting 9 hours of sleep every day, consistently. Then step 2, start putting those choices to work through new positive behaviors. So, e.g., for me to get those 9 hours of sleep, I need to be eating earlier. So start cooking dinner at 4 p.m., allowing me enough time to cook, eat, clean up the kitchen, and then start the rest of my night routine. Then step 3, start repeating those healthy actions long enough to establish new habits. So e.g., cooking dinner, every night at 4 p.m. So I'm going to consistently keep hitting that. And then In turn, what this starts to create is a ripple effect. So a ripple effect is, just imagine you have a pond and it has still water in it, and you throw a pebble, which the pebble is your habit, that small little choice that you're making consistently over time that you hope to create positive effects in your life. So for this example, getting 9 hours sleep. Now imagine you throw that in the pond. That's life. Now what happens when that pebble hits the water? It creates ripples that affect the rest of the pond, your life. So in our example, from me getting 9 hours sleep consistently every day, every week, then that allows me to start my day off with full energy and full clarity of mind. And then when I go to the workout and when I complete my workout, then I can give it my all because my body's well rested. It's ready for it. And then when I go to bed the next day, I can actually absorb all that training that I just worked hard for. And now I can absorb the benefits and my body can be fresh for the next day when I do training again. And then the cycle just repeats itself again and again and again and again. And then eventually, think about the power of doing that for a month of 9 hours sleep consistently. Think about the effects that could have in your life. See, it's hard to see it in the short term because it's so minor. But when we look at the grand scheme of it, say a year or 2 years, think about the positive effects on how 9 hours sleep could benefit you. Now, the opposite is also true, which you must remember as well, is we can create positive habits in our life, but we could also be currently right now have bad habits that are compounding over time to make our lives worse. Whether you're suffering through an addiction like pornography, or whether you're consistently not getting that poor sleep every day, say that's 4 to 5 hours. So you got to keep that in mind as well. Now, an action step that you can take from this video is think of your goal, your quest, whether it be in running or whatever area of your life, and think about 3 small little actions that you can do consistently every day over time that will get you closer to that goal. Now, as always, it's never too late to start your dreams.